have a line of defense, and that is largely Rob Sampson and a smattering of others. State Senator from Wolcott. Rob, thanks for being here.
Always my pleasure, Todd. Thanks for having me.
You serve on the Housing Committee. Is that what it's called?
Yes, I am the ranking Republican, which is kind of like the minority chairman on several committees, including housing.
So this is there's a lot of bad ideas that Democrats have about how to get government intervening and making a mess of the housing marketplace more than it has already. What are the things you're most concerned about?
Well, I've never actually served on the Housing Committee before, but I volunteered for that assignment this year because I saw the Democrats gearing up for a huge push for, a creation of more government mandates for affordable housing that would ignore local zoning, and then plenty of policies that just simply affect the private contracts between landlords and tenants. Rent control. They had several bills this year, including limiting rent increases to 2.5%, which is just a shocking thing to do in a marketplace where the average inflation is 7% or so. And we managed to stop those bills on the rent control. They've been turned only into a task force to study the issue. So that's a huge victory for myself and my few courageous Republican colleagues who pushed back very hard, and we took a lot of heat from the far left radicals.
What is it that you think caused them to turn and run on that?
I think that there's just the arguments that we made were compelling, which is that, on one hand, they're trying to say that the state has a shortage of affordable housing and that the government needs to be involved to intervene. And on the other hand, they're saying that these housing providers are not welcome. I mean, how does that even work? How can you propose to be encouraging the creation of more housing when you're trying to chase away the people that provide it?
But that's what they do with everything, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's exactly what they do with everything. They create an emergency. I tell people all the time about tolls is my great example. Tolls and bridges, roads and bridges. People always say, that's the one thing the politicians come to us all the time about. We need money to fix the roads and bridges. And people are always willing to ante up for that. But you notice they never actually do it. And that's because the moment they do, they can't come back looking for that money again.
There is that danger. And so you're saying it's a tension that they want to be able to make policy around, but they don't want to actually they don't want to be the dog that catches the mail truck.
Right. I appreciated your Lindsey Graham piece, by the way, because I hear that type of thing from my colleagues on a regular basis. And I understand where they're coming from. But the problem with that is that they're giving far too simple an answer because they're lazy. The fact of the matter is that these programs, even Social Security, is a bad anti-American idea. Mm-hmm. But when you say that, people just they step back aghast. Like, how dare you say that? Social Security is what's keeping my elderly, relatives and so forth, so that they can afford to live. Well, the fact of the matter is that no one wants to get rid of it today. But I think that there are better solutions, and we ought to work on them so that we don't have an entitlement program. I'll give you a good example directly related to the subject of the rent caps. The hardest question I get, and I'm looking at it right on my Facebook page right now, which is, what is the solution for elderly on fixed income where Social Security is their only income? And they just talk about how rents are too high and they can't afford them. And I'm like, the answer is stop believing the government when they tell you that they are there to help. That's the answer.
Yes, they're the ones who create these huge. I mean, you alluded to the inflation a couple of minutes ago when you were talking about the proposal to cap the increases in rents that landlords could charge, and that inflation is a government-caused problem. And rather than fix the inflation, they run around looking to use it as an opportunity to do more bad things that will continue to drive up the cost of living.
Absolutely. Yeah, so just to continue on the subject of the housing issues, we managed to stop the rent control, but they have plenty of other bad ideas, including moratoriums on evictions, suggesting that landlords would not be able to evict their tenants for 4 months out of the year, regardless of the reason. Not just non-payment of rent, but like if the lease expires or there's another breach of contract, even if that person is a nuisance, according to the law, actually, the definition in the law, which is a nuisance to both either the landlord or other tenants. It's incredible. There's bills that say that the landlord would have to use the credit report provided by the tenant, as if that could be trusted, and that they couldn't charge for the credit report until after they gave the person the news that they weren't taking them as a tenant. I mean, who's going to pay at that point? I mean, it just they create so many problems. And you're right. They try and come along with supposed solutions, but a lot of this is just showing off to their base. That's really all it is.
It's to pretend that they're doing something to mitigate. What's funny to me, Rob, is we're talking to Rob Sampson, state senator from Wolcott. What I see is this this permanent desire to make messes of everything, and those messes, they come riding in to look like the cavalry coming to save the day from this messy marketplace and those evil capitalists who are in it, when in fact the problems are all created by the plundering of the government class. It must get really frustrating from your point of view in terms of communicating that message to people.
Right, and there's a distortion of the facts from the media. I mean, the number one quoted statement out of all of the hearings that we've had on the rent control issues was one of the folks testifying who said that the free market is the problem. And that's the thing that's been repeated over and over again, as if there's any type of free market in housing in Connecticut. I mean, the game is rigged. I mean, the government shut down the ability of landlords to collect rent for a year. You know, I mean, they shut down the housing court system for a couple of years. They have the game swayed in so many ways. How can anyone conceive of that as a free market?
Well,
and the
plus,
same thing's going on in other areas.
Well,
too.
Nevertheless, the only reason anything is happening in the rental market, the only reason there are apartments, the only reason they're for rent, the only reason people have a job so they can collect money and pay the rent is because of markets. And even though they're not good marketplaces because the government keeps making a mess of them, it's remarkable that they can get away with those arguments that are so disingenuous and utter fabrications. They're just complete lies. The only thing that we have is what is provided to us by capitalism.
I couldn't agree more. And it's just so sad that there are so many people who come to the legislature and make extremely heartfelt and passionate arguments to the opposite, because they are just ignorant of our history. They are ignorant of just the benefit of freedom and capitalism and what it has brought to our world, and that we live in the greatest place with the greatest quality of life in human history as a result. They just don't get it. They think that government is the answer and government's there to protect them.
But I don't get, Rob, how can people be that dumb? You know, even if you're not educated and even if you don't know about the history of this country, if you just look around, is government running the coffee shop where you stop to get the excellent cup of coffee in the morning? They don't even make the bad cups of coffee happily, because that means the bad ones aren't as bad as they might be. The problem, it strikes me, that we have is that government controls education, and as a result, everyone's getting mediocre, dull education when we need really fast-moving, agile, and changing education that meets the demands of the moment. And that's what the curb on productivity is because government has made so many messes already.
I couldn't agree more. But there's so many reasons. And the number one reason, I would say, more than anything, besides the fact that the far left controls education, entertainment, most of the news media, so that's the messaging people are getting. Mm-hmm. But the biggest reason is it's just easier to be a victim. And that's what they sell. They sell victimhood. And people, especially if they have an excuse based on their race or where they grew up, or they're from the inner city, they will cling to that. And I'm not even saying that is not without any merit at all, because you and I would agree that there is, a systemic problems created by Democrats in the way they deliver services and make people dependent upon them. But the fact of the matter is, it's just easier to say, I did not have the same opportunity as my landlord did, and now he's taking advantage of me as a tenant. And that's what's wrong with everything going on in this state.
Yeah, but even if that were true, to punish the landlord for that by saying that he can't collect the rent that he needs to get because Democrats have driven up the cost of living, the effect of that, anybody can see, is going to be to discourage people from investing in housing and to discourage people from investing in upgrading the existing housing. So who wins from that?
Well, no one does, but they don't see it. They don't see beyond today. They don't see beyond the immediate. And it's a question I ask many people who testify before the committees. Do you know what the result of this is? Do you understand that people are not going to be inclined to do this type of work in the future if you discourage them? And we have so many more bills. I mean, this week coming up, there's going to be a bill in the Labor Committee that basically says that you can't do any on-call shift scheduling. In other words, you can't plan someone's you can't ask them to be on call. You have to plan their schedule in advance. And that just doesn't work for lots of industries.
Certain industries,
yeah, restaurants and landscapers. I mean, you can't go cut the grass when it's snowing. I mean, it's like, but they don't care. They don't care. They're just going to pass the policy and people will testify in favor of it and say that this is the only way things can be. And they don't care about the disruption in the marketplace because that goes to their benefit too.
Yeah, because they ride into the rescue. We're going to protect you from those evil people as everything keeps getting worse. And the only place people can turn for protection is to the big government that has made the mess in the first place, and they don't realize it.
Yeah. Today, I'm in two separate monumental hearings. I'm sure you probably heard about the big judiciary hearing today, where we're going over, a mountain of gun control proposals. I'm disappointed that a few people came to testify. I mean, there may be 1,000 pieces of testimony online, but I think there's only about 100 people signed up to testify in person or Zoom, and I think that's a shame because we need a much larger turnout. Anyone who, certainly people that have a pistol permit or own a firearm, or anyone who values this country and our Bill of Rights, particularly the Second Amendment, ought to be participating in this because we are in grave danger of losing many significant aspects of our Second Amendment protections. I mean, they want to get rid of, restrict you to one firearm per month. They want to ban a whole host of more types of guns. They want to create a whole bunch of different crimes just for possessing certain things. They want to make more requirements about how you store your firearm. They want to micro-stamp the firing pin on your gun. I mean, there's just so many ridiculous things, and none of those have anything to do with quote-unquote gun violence that they like to point to, because those things admitted by them in the hearing right out of the gate, the first 3 or 4 people testifying in favor all acknowledged that the vast majority of violence is caused by stolen firearms. I'm like, but why are we being soft on crime then? How come no one's talking about that? Why aren't we addressing the root cause of the problem? And that's because, it benefits their worldview. And this gun control stuff is really just used by Democrats to gin up their base and to raise money.
But the people who own guns are organized, and why aren't they mobilized? Why is there a shortage of people testifying today?
I think that they, for the most part, look at it like their voice is not going to matter. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and they couldn't be more wrong. They could not be more wrong, which is why I have spent the last several weeks trying to put together, kind of like a warning list of the bad bills that are coming in the next several days. It's very hard to do, too, Todd, I got to tell you, because the game is rigged against us. I mean, the Democrats, they only are required to give you 5 days notice for a public hearing. Generally speaking, the language for the bill doesn't even exist until the day of, so no one even knows what they'd be testifying on or off or about. And they count, Thursday night at 11:59 p.m. is the first day. And then so Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday morning, 9 a.m. hearing. So they're very clever about, rigging the game.
Well,
so it's hard
malicious,
to get
I think, is what we would call that. We're talking to Rob Sampson, state senator from Wolcott. We've got 90 seconds left. What else can you tell us?
I was just so you got the gun control in one hearing, and then the other hearing that I'm in, I'm actually the ranking member of the Government Administration and Elections Committee as well. And over there, we're talking about ranked choice voting. There's literally half a dozen bills on the agenda today for ranked choice voting. And I got to tell you, that will be a disaster. They also have bills to allow incarcerated people to vote. They have bills to say that there'll be mandatory voting time. Mandatory. And they talk about it like it's a good thing. I'm like, you're depriving someone of a right when you make something mandatory. And I think that was lost on some of the people that were testifying in favor. But we'll keep working at it.
Rob, are you saying you still want to mobilize people to testify today?
I can't mobilize anyone to testify today because, generally speaking, they also abuse the rules by requiring folks to sign up the day before by 3 p.m. is the typical deadline. But I will be releasing the next batch, hopefully things for Thursday or Friday of this week that you can still sign up for, and maybe Monday, Tuesday of next week. So I will check in once I have that.
All right. How do people find you online?
Yes, in fact, I'd encourage people to sign up on my website for email updates. It's at Senator Sampson, SAMPSON.com. And if you go there and you sign up for my email updates, I will be sure to be getting things in your email to let you know how you can help out. And it's so easy these days, Todd. You don't even have to go to the Capitol. You can just sign up online and you can tune in by Zoom. You can, read your testimony. It doesn't have to be long. Yeah, just a few sentences.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a numbers game. And when there's a bad bill and there's 300 people testifying in favor of it and there's only a couple speaking against, it makes it very hard to defend.
State Senator Rob Sampson, thank you, sir. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
All right.